What's up, guys? So along the same lines as the previous video, what was it? Position property. Now I'll be talking about the float property and trying to explain it in English so that let's see if you guys actually understand what I'm talking about if I just explain it. So I got my reference to the left. First, I will attempt to explain it without the reference. So what is the float property in CSS? Well, very simply, the float property is a property that you would put in CSS, and the values for the property would include left and right. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's the only two that are used the most commonly. And what does float actually do? Well, float is a property that basically takes an element out of the normal flow and positions it to the left or right of its parent element. And its original use had to do with when designers needed something, or when developers needed something where they could move an element and then have like text wrap around it, like have an image and then have text to the right. By the way, you still have to set a margin on the element that you want the text to wrap around, but that's what the original intent was for, or the original intent was when the float property was created. But now it's used for all kinds of things. And once again, what it does is you got your parent element, you have an element right there, and then let's say you just want it to float all the way to the right or the left, and then you want text to wrap around it. So that's pretty much what it is commonly used for. Just to kind of touch on some of the other aspects of its use. There are other uses for floats, for instance, implementing responsive grids, and that was pretty much the only example they said. And then there's another thing that's worth noting, which is the clear property and how it is used simultaneously with float in order to achieve a certain result. So what the clear property does, let me recall what it does. Give me a second to think. Clear property. Okay, now I remember. So the clear property, let's say you have a bunch of elements, right? 3 boxes, 1, 2, 3, and you want to float the middle box to the right. If you want to float the middle box to the right, you're taking it out of the normal flow and you're floating it to the right. So the 2 boxes that are vertical fill in the space because that space is no longer being filled. So because you took that middle box and you took it out of the normal flow, so those 2 boxes come together. So let's say you want that second box to, because it's a block level element, so you want it to be on a new line because it's a block level element. You don't want it to be an inline element because you have that other box that's floated to the right. So that's when you would come in and use the clear property, and you would put that as a property for that element, for that box you want to lower. And when you clear it, it just gives it a new line. So that was an explanation of the CSS float property. Once again, just training my ability to explain programming concepts.